hard. It was just really a difficult time for us financially, a difficult time in terms of family arrangements and mental health. It was too much. It really was just too much.
The things you didn't know about me.
True. Yes.
Detailed. They seemed small, but they weren't.
They were significant.
They were significant. The story alone might seem so small, but what's behind it?
Right.
And when we unpacked,
right,
it revealed so much. And it actually made me love you more because it was like, oh, that's why he does that thing that annoys the heck out of me. One thing after the other, hospital visit after hospital visit, being admitted for 5 days, which was terrifying for my family and our kids. And I'm not away from them. And to be away from them and in a hospital room, it's really hard.
Tell me what you're waiting for, the best is all for you. I gotta pray some more since I come home to you. I had to line it up, and they say we shouldn't shine it up, but that's just how his timing was, and look at what we do. They cannot tell me nothing, baby, the way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come the way you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you whenever, I keep my eyes on you forever. Man, we got the kind of love that says for work.
Welcome, family, to the Progress Podcast. I'm Russell Fugit, and I'm going to introduce my wife. She's very mindful, very cutesy, very demure. My wonderful wife.
Hi, I'm Sela, and I did not expect that. Thank you, honey. You've been watching a little too much TikTok and Instagram.
I don't even got the TikTok. I don't even got the TikTok. But yeah, I'm trying to keep up and stay current.
Be impressed.
Be real, be relevant, you know.
So how did we get here?
Oh, it's been a journey. Certainly. It's been a journey coming out of the wilderness season, which I think we're going to start off talking about. But we're really excited to be here in this space. Thank you, those of you who are watching. Thank you, those of you who have supported us to get to this space. Faith and Nathaniel, Katie, Lori, thank you. We're certainly inspired and motivated to be here. It's been very clear we have a mandate to begin every episode and end every episode with the Bible verse. We want to start and begin with the Word of God. We certainly believe that Jesus Christ is the beginning and the end, Alpha and the Omega. And so, our conversations will be rooted talking about marriage and life and the marketplace and church, and a lot of different topics through that lens. So we're really rooted as the Progress Podcast in 1 Timothy 4, and that's 4:11 through 16, which reads, command and teach these things. Don't let anyone despise your youth, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. Until I come, give your attention to public reading, exhortation, and teaching. Don't neglect the gift that is in you. It was given to you through prophecy with the laying on of hands by the council of elders. Practice these things, be committed to them, so that your progress may be evident to all. Pay close attention to your life and your teaching. Persevere in these things, for in doing this, you will save both yourself and your hearers. So there's a lot there.
Yes.
And we're just blessed that we feel we're being obedient to what God has called us to do, to show the progress we've had in about 10 years of marriage and in the community we've built in our lives to share with you. So
yeah, we strive to be an example of those things, of our speech, of our conduct, of our love, of our faith. And so we decided to start this podcast because we live in a world where everything is perfectly curated and it's all these beautiful highlight reels of life. But there aren't a lot of people that are willing to get real and vulnerable and raw about marriage and about life and how tough it could be. And that's what we feel like God is calling us to do, to share our insights, our stories, what we've learned, how we've survived. And we're really excited to share that with you guys.
Yeah. So, really happy to be here. Certainly inspired a lot by Tim Ross.
Yes.
Had a chance to meet a couple times and be a couple of the events with him. And so we're supporting that today. We probably wouldn't be here and inspired. Our marriage probably wouldn't be where it is.
Amen.
Without what he's done there. Faith and Nathaniel Cole, a lot of people don't know them. These Three Remains podcast. If you listen to audio, go back and find that podcast. These Three Remained, Faith, Hope, and Love. So, but we're diving in to, like we said, how do we get here? And it's been, this is really us coming out of a wilderness in public, which is kind of wild, right? Yeah.
Let's define what is a wilderness. So if you're not in the churchy world,
right.
what is a wilderness? Like a dark season?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's We've talked about this obviously before.
Let's explain maybe what that is when we say wilderness, how we see that differently than just calling it like a dark season.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, obviously, people have rough patches in life and hard things happen. Life is hard. Of course, the Bible says it rains on the just and the unjust alike, right? So we're all going to face challenges in life. But I think a wilderness season is a unique season when you might be going on a certain path in life, in your career, in your marriage, in your family, right? And then there's a sudden disruption that's unexpected, that's jarring. And sometimes I think I've heard and read other people can say they kind of sense it, or they're even, yearning for a change. And there's, even power to think about being careful what you pray for, right? What you ask for, because God can turn things upside down, and then you're, really kind of get into a place about, what is happening in life. And so really that journey is really God moving, right? We don't want to give the enemy too much credit, but it's God pruning things away in your life. And that can be relationships, that can be business ideas, that can be things you held dear as dreams even. But most importantly, God's pruning things away in your heart and shaping you into who he needs you to be. And that's a process and that's a journey, right? And so obviously—
Share with us about your wilderness.
Yeah.
Tell for a tangible example
sure.
what that looked like in your own life.
I mean, in some ways, I've thought of my life and I've, prayed and spoken to God. I know, Costa, we've talked about this. Like my whole adult life has felt like a wilderness season of trying to attain the unattainable, aspiring to things. And we'll talk about more of that in a future episode. As a business person, as an entrepreneur in particular, right? And so more recently, 2023, really was a hard year for me and for obviously for us. Started out the year with having, my grandmother passed. And that was certainly very jarring. I had a very successful end of 2022 as a business owner, right? Yeah, she was happy. She's smiling about that. Yeah. Christmas was nice. Money was hitting the bank account. And then all of a sudden, the bottom fell out of my business. And things got really real. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, the matriarch of the family, caused a lot of— Yeah, and I didn't really realize that until she passed, right, until she was gone. And so that was part of it as well. So again, there was some very tangible things happening in terms of business, literally grinding to a halt. But then also there was the spiritual aspect of understanding that relationship and how important it had been to me and how much it had covered me, how much my grandmother had done for me to cover me in ways I didn't really realize and comprehend. And I'm still in some ways kind of learning and growing and understanding that and healing really from it, right? So, that happened. And, again, as business slowed, it really got to the point where I literally wound down the iteration of my business. Now I've been a business owner for almost over 15 years. And in this iteration, I wound it down and turned the website off basically and stopped, referred people to other places a couple times. And I was kind of that, and I was doing my own things to make ends meet, but it was very hard. Then my uncle passed. So I had compound grief. And for some complicated reasons, wasn't able to attend his funeral, which ended up being out of town, which is a whole story. And that was hard. It was just really a difficult time for us financially, a difficult time in terms of family arrangements and mental health. It was too much. It really was just too much. I literally had shut the website down 2 weeks before he passed. And, I saw him the last time on Father's Day. And the week he passed, we were literally getting ready to go see him. And then he had to go to the hospital that day. The day we were going to see him, and then he died 3 days later. And so, still, a little over a year later, walking with that. And so, going through into the second half of the year, it was just really difficult to figure out, okay, God, what's happening? I was applying for jobs, but having been an entrepreneur primarily for the last 15 years, it was really hard to find a fit. Places where I know I'm capable and competent, certainly, but didn't have the quote unquote experience, didn't have the right fit, and got a lot of compliments on my entrepreneurial experience, but this is not a fit for this opportunity, and we wish you luck, and we'll help you even sometimes. But so it just became a really, really hard year for me, and just there was challenges in family relationships. Obviously, there's always challenges in marriage and in parenting, right, and just doing life. And so we shared challenges in our faith community, which we'll get into later on in a future episode. But it was a lot at once. Yeah.
So once you recognized, I'm in a wilderness season, what did you do? And we can talk about mine next, but I really want to stay on you. What did you do when you recognized, I'm in this wilderness season?
I think I had to take accountability. I think that was the hardest thing for me to do. And I had to give you permission to speak hard truths to me. And we spent a lot of time on our deck, especially in the spring and summer of 23. and I had to hear some hard things. I didn't always agree, of course. There were some things you had to apologize for, but there was a lot more that I had to apologize for. We'll touch on this, but I definitely had dropped the ball in terms of being the leader of my family. I definitely dropped the ball in terms of stewarding my children and my wife in a way that put them first before my dreams. And the big mistake I made, quite frankly, was I didn't come to the altar of our marriage and put my business dreams on that altar and submit that to my marriage. And that allowed me to try a lot of wonderful things and have a modicum of success periodically at times, but not achieve the stability and the continuity of success that was required. But also the disruption of my family also exacerbated that, because it also revealed a lot of things that from my youth and my childhood that I had not addressed because of the family disruption on both sides of my family. And so I really had to lean in to that, and in the process lean into my marriage. And thank you for being there and for having the courage to speak things to me.
It was not easy.
I know.
It was so hard. I had to talk to God about it a lot. So wise, talk to God.
What was that conversation with God like? Like, how would you pray when I was in that place?
Burdened. And I'd be like, God, I'm so burdened. And I see it. And it honestly was the Lord telling me to take baby steps. And I did. I said a little bit, and I was gentle, and I saw how you reacted, and I was there. And then, like, you might not even recognize some of the baby steps. They might not have offended you, but when I had to say the hard thing, I really worked myself up to it a little bit and was like, okay, because I'm a recovering people pleaser. That's who I am. Right. I want you happy all the time. Your joy is my joy. So it was so hard, but I knew I had to do this to get you to grow and to get you to see some of the unhealth that became normal to you. Because you don't know our dysfunction.
No.
And I know that firsthand, and we could talk about that on another episode, but I had to remove myself out of a very dysfunctional situation 4 or 5 years ago. And my life has completely changed because of that. And I know the power in that. And I just wanted you to see that too.
So marriage is a mirror. So a lot of the work we did in that season was really examining how our marriage should function. I won't say we quite broke it down to the studs, because I think we had a strong foundation. We've been very rooted in Christ, especially the last 5 years.
There are things I didn't know about you. There are things you didn't know about me.
True. Yes.
Detailed. They seemed small, but they weren't.
They were significant.
They were significant. The story alone might seem so small, but what's behind it?
Right.
And when we unpacked, it revealed so much. And it actually made me love you more, because it was like, oh, that's why he does that thing that annoys the heck out of me. But now I understand. I can love you through it.
Right.
So there's so much beauty that came out of it.
And I even understand why it was so annoying, because it was normal to me, right? And I didn't even realize, I remember God giving me revelation one time about understanding something from my childhood that drove you crazy, but it didn't affect me. But I had to realize, why does it bother you so much, but didn't really bother me? And I had to realize why it didn't bother me, because of one of my experiences as a kid that was like, oh, wasn't a big deal. It was normal. And so I had to realize it might have been normal, but it wasn't great that I had to experience that. And I should have had a different attitude towards addressing it with you and our children as well. And so that was like a learning experience. And I really am grateful. I remember sitting here and asking myself in that moment when that happened, God, what did I miss? And that was a lot of last year was, God, what did I miss? And when I asked that question and I gave God permission to give me the revelation, I guess I got it directly in my own heart. Oh, let me explain this to you, my story, and why this thing didn't bother me, but it bothered you. Why I understand why it bothers you, but now I know why it doesn't bother me. Although it should have bothered me. It made me act with much more urgency than I did to address it, right? And so, but sometimes, most of the time, I would say, or just as often, God used you as my mirror to speak to me about what I was missing, or we would piece it together. We would piece it together in our time together, health challenges. I had eight months with a tooth issue. I've had multiple knee surgeries. My knee flared up one morning. And so you feel like you get under all these attacks. And so, part of the wilderness, I think, is a lot of things happen you just don't understand. And they kind of happen, like I said, as a compound effect, different issues and things pop up that are certainly beyond your control, in addition to some things that are beyond your control. And so, again, don't give the enemy too much credit, really leaning in to understanding how you respond to those things. And really what it did for me and for us is teach us to go to God first, to respond, because these things, there was no understanding, like, why can I get this toothache resolved? Why did I literally wake up one morning with my knee so bad I could barely walk and had to get a cortisone shot for no reason? I didn't do anything.
And I feel so bad about his tooth, y'all. I'm in dentistry.
I don't know. I still might be in pain if you
28 years, and I could not help him figure out the tooth thing.
You tried.
I felt like such a failure.
You tried. But we got it resolved. And I still got a beautiful smile. Thank you.
Yes, you do.
But it hurt. Lord, it was a lot. I won't even go into a whole other episode about invite me to your dental podcast if you got one. No. Don't. So I wanted to, ask you how did you come into these conversations that we have? Like, what was your strategy when I was going through all this stuff last year to really get some awareness and understanding as to where I was, how you could help me and help us move forward?
Honestly, I got curious. That was the best thing that I could have done. It's just, tell me what's behind this. Tell me what's coming up for you. Tell me tell me that story that this might be attached to. I just asked a lot of questions, and I didn't make up my own reasoning, because a lot of times I've done that in the past. I've told myself a story and I've made up in my mind, and I didn't want to do that because in my mind it was like not good. The story was not very good. And I knew that I needed to get curious about what was behind this, because I know you love me, and I know you wouldn't do some of the things you mentioned before about with the kids, or just some of this mental health challenges that I felt like were kind of blindside, because I hadn't seen this side of you, and we've been together 10 years. It was like, what's going on? I had no choice but to get curious. I was really concerned.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for that. And being able to hold space to listen. I know one thing the married couples that we coach through myprogresscoach.com and others that we've had through our church community for the last few years, try to encourage people to get curious and to be really intentional about putting time on the calendar, quite literally, to do that. And so, life gets busy, parenting gets busy, work, career. But thank you for taking that time to do that. I'm definitely thinking through, once we had those conversations, trying to begin to put together some next steps. I think the second half of the year a little bit started to feel, give me a little bit, and as we got into the fall, really try to create a little bit of momentum and really optimism for 2024, which we're now in, and really thinking that there was, certainly some upward momentum coming.
We were sitting around like, woe is me. You were moving. He was making slideshow and plans for the next year.
July and August were hot summer, tough times.
But as we came into the year, you really were like, okay, I'm going to push through. We're going to get through this as a family. You stood up, even when you might not have had the strength. So thank you for doing that, because little did I know I needed that going into 2024. Yeah.
So, had a lot of great energy. Actually, received an award on behalf of my family at this amazing event. Gave us this 3-minute. I still haven't watched a video from that speech I gave.
I haven't. You gave a whole sermon.
I gave a whole 3-minute David and Goliath sermon. I had people saying amen in the
hooting and hollering with the dress in their hand. It was
It was interesting. It was an interesting night.
Shot amen, brother.
I mean, it was an interesting party at the museum in Baltimore, and so ended up starting the year with a news story on the Channel 2 News. Thank you, Jamie Costello, amazing human being. And I thought we were going to rock into 2024. We received a word for obedience from First James that really clarified this year. But little did we know what obedience would really require. I think that's another thing about being
James 1:22,
getting out of a wilderness. James 1, not 1 James.
Yeah, I had to correct you.
Thank you.
That's my
keep me on track with my Bible. I do not want to be misquoted.
Don't just be hearers of the word.
Doers of the word.
And we feel strongly about obedience, and that was our word for the year.
But the thing is about obedience is so first of all, I guess obedience is the path out of the wilderness, right? But we don't know what that looks like, what that's going to require, right? And thinking about the story of Moses, but there's giants in the land,
Obedience sounds easy until you get there. And then you got to be obedient.
Yeah. And you think you're going to be obedient unto success after success after success.
But what if it's failure after failure?
Or just more wilderness, more growth, more pruning that still has to happen before you get to some promises. And, God's given us some promises, and we've seen many of them come to pass. And God's blessed us in so many ways, but we've come into 2024, and things didn't quite go the way we thought they were going to go this year. But as we said in the beginning of this episode, here we are, though, towards the end of the year. But we want to talk a little bit about how we began 2024.
For me and my wilderness season.
For you and your wilderness season.
So, beginning of 2024, the bottom kind of fell out for me, if you will. My mom died in January, and that was really hard because I was estranged from my family of origin. So it wasn't just the death of my mom, but also being thrown back in to people that I haven't been close with in a long time. And so there was a lot going on with that. And when I returned to work after 2 weeks of bereavement leave, I was unexpectedly let go due to a reduction in force. And it was a complete blindside, and I was devastated. Woke up February 1st, no job, no mom, grief like you could not imagine, and not knowing what to do, but feeling like the Lord was telling me I needed to rest, but being the breadwinner of our family at that point, and Russell had shut down his business, I didn't think that I could. And I tried to push myself a little, and then the Lord was like, nope, I'm going to sit you all the way down. And I got sick and could not get better. And one thing after the other, hospital visit after hospital visit, being admitted for 5 days, which was terrifying for my family and our kids. I'm not away from them. And to be away from them and in a hospital room was really hard. And so I just had such a difficult season with that time. And then when I finally got out of the hospital and got that somewhat cleared up, I got diagnosed with severe depression. And I was just like, one more thing, God, one more thing. And so bad to the point that I have to be on medication, and it's okay. And it's helping. And I'm thankful for it because I need it in this season. I needed it in that season, and I'm still on it. So I'm just so thankful, though, that obedience was our word. Because before knowing all of that was going to happen, it was a daily reminder. We have it in our house on our chalk wall. And every day I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm going to be obedient because my life, I don't have nothing left. I got no more plans. I got no more ideas. Right. I am out. I'm done. So that was me coming into my wilderness.
Certainly, I was still processing my next. What is not is it only what is my next, and it really became what is our next as a couple, as a family. What
my next was rest.
Right. Well, your immediate next
my
was rest.
Next
but
was
obviously,
rest.
You're thinking about, we're marketplace people.
Yes, we are.
Professionals have been in a variety of business and corporate spaces and have succeeded in those spaces, made great relationships in those spaces. But really figuring, okay, what's next for us, right? Not just for me. And I think that was been the biggest shift that's truly arrived us at this point where we're doing this together.
We're doing this together. We're doing My Progress Coach together. We're coaching premarital and early married couples. And honestly, I have more joy. I have more peace than I have ever had. So,
and it's all over you. And so many people who, so many women in our church in particular are so encouraging to you, which encourages me. I guess I'm doing something right to help you walk through that in such a unique way.
People tell me all the time, I don't smell like smoke. I don't smell like smoke. I've been through the fire, but I don't smell like smoke.
I know at the beginning of this year, I don't think we said it in the very beginning, but this is basically a kind of relaunch, but a new start of
my podcast.
Right. Progress Over Perfection podcast, which again, if you're an audio person, it's still up. You want to go back and listen to 18 episodes.
Yeah, you want to know all the juice of my life.
Yeah, you want. So that was really Sela's
healing journey.
It was very biographical for the first half. Second half, we got into some topics that we'll probably get back into.
And honestly, I didn't care if anyone listened to it. I was shocked by the amount of people that did listen to it. But it was just, I just needed to heal. And
because when we were sitting in this very room, recording the trailer.
Way.
I couldn't look at her. She wouldn't let me look at her.
She would not let him. Exactly.
Yeah, she was so nervous.
I said, turn around. He's like, I know what you look like. I'm like, I know. I cried 6 times. I couldn't. And the trailer. Nobody listens to it.
It's audio. This is not YouTube.
Yeah, it wasn't even
no video, no social media push. Right, nothing.
Just a plastic device. And I'm over here crying. Turn around. Yeah. So no, we've come a long way.
So, well, you've come a long way. We have. But yeah, certainly you haven't been able to share your story and your testimony. How have we known, like, throughout the course of this year, right, over the last 10 months, like from everything that happened in January, like within 2 weeks, losing your mom, losing your job, and then ending up in the hospital in March, like, how do we know we were coming out of the wilderness? I remember the beginning of the year, around that March time, I'm like, I want to get back to the podcast. I feel like I got stuff I want to talk about, right? And you were like, we're not ready yet. I'm like, I know, you're right. But I'm just telling you, it's in my heart. So, but how have we known in recent months, like, that we were ready to really move forward and to embrace this vision that God's given us?
I mean, I guess this is a hard answer because you don't ever know. I don't know for sure. I'm following, I'm being obedient to what God is asking us to do. Do we know that this is guaranteed?
We don't know the outcome.
We don't,
right.
But I know that I'm being obedient, in the ways that I know that is because God's providing every one of our needs.
There it is.
Like, everything I was stressed about for this podcast, everything in this room, people gave. We woke up to Cash App. I woke up to Venmo, and I'm like, you know this person? Like, are you serious? It just was shocking. Our artwork from our friend, the music for our podcast, everything just came. And finances. God provided for ourselves. I missed a meal. We ain't missed nothing. God is just showing up. So it's like, okay, Lord, you got me. I'm going to be obedient. Yeah. I'm your vessel. Use me. Use us.
Right. So I think the answer is, if you're wondering, is there fruit in your obedience? And for us, we've walked in what we felt the next thing God was calling us to do, and we've done it. And there's been fruit in that obedience, right? And there's been, and the fruit has been provision. The fruit has been healing.
Yep.
The fruit has been, as it says in the word, in Proverbs, seek ye first above understanding. Right. But above all, if you can get understanding, get wisdom, but if you can get understanding. Mm-hmm. And so really being able to get an understanding as to how God sees us and how God operates in our marriage, mm-hmm. and what that should look like and how that should look like day in and day out, and walking in that, and then how we reflect that into the marketplace. I know God's, one thing I wanted you to share a little bit more about is how God called you to serve. Oh, yeah. Even in that season when you were having health challenges, at one point she could barely talk.
I had no voice. My kids loved it. They thought I was the soft.
Yes. But what'd you learn? What'd you learn from that very lesson? What'd you learn
that I needed to?
What'd your daughter say?
I needed to be more present. Yeah. I needed to be softer. God taught me in the sickness. Yeah. God taught me so much, and it's made me a better mom. It really has. It's made me slow down. It's made me realize what's important and what's not important all the time. Just so many beautiful things. But back to the service.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I want to say one night when one of our daughters came to you and said, like, I like the quieter you. And it was like, oh my God, did she just insult my wife? I was like, but you received this so graciously that she just liked that you were not, because sometimes when you would finish work, you would be frantic and kids coming home from school and making dinner, whatever was going on. And you were still stressed about work and the laptop, and that was gone.
What?
And then also now you couldn't be laughing because you could.
It's like a double.
So it was a double whammy, but it was a lesson for her and for us of like, okay, what kind of environment do we want to maintain for our home? Yep. And how does that impact our children?
Yeah. And how was I showing up?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how was it? So
that's another blessing in this is that, I lost my job, but it also revealed the lens my kids were seeing me through.
Right.
And I need to make a course correct on that, regardless of what job I'm doing. I can't. I'm not going to be that parent.
But get back to service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I lose my job. I'm sick as a dog. I'm like, God, I can't, I'm not the sit around type of person. What am I supposed to be doing right now? I have so many gifts to offer. I am resting, by the way, but I can only rest so much. Okay. I'm not. Yeah. So I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? God tells me I'm supposed to serve. So I'm like, okay, who am I supposed to serve? He gives me these people that I think are going to think I'm crazy. And I'm like, I'm terrified. And one of them calls me the day I'm supposed to call him. So I was like, okay, God. I was like, well, I was supposed to call you today. So I'm so glad you called me. And God has just orchestrated so many beautiful, unimaginable opportunities for me. It's just absolutely blowing my mind. This weekend, I'm doing the Baltimore Met Gala. I mean, it's just absolutely insane because I offered to serve a producer of it and we've become friends. And like, I don't belong at a Met Gala? Like, I have my makeup done like once in my life. I mean, seriously, it's crazy. So, but God is just putting me in these spaces and asking me to just take territory, show up, love on people, be different. And that's what we're doing. And so just that and so many other amazing opportunities for us and all was birthed out of, how can I serve you? What do you need? I mean, one person was like, I don't know how to do an Etsy page. Can you help me? Sure, I'd love to. And it's turned into like just a beautiful relationship, and they've blessed us and we've blessed them. And it's so cool. But if I wouldn't have done it,
if you hadn't been obedient.
I hadn't been obedient,
right.
Even though I was terrified.
So I think another great lesson from thinking about a wilderness season, like how you're exiting out, I think it's easy for us, as all of us as humans, to be like, woe is me, and to sit and to cry. We're going to have those moments. We're going to have those days, those nights, right? But I think once you process through that grief or whatever you're feeling or the loss you're feeling, realizing that God's doing something, then finding out, okay, how do I find other people to serve? How do I look beyond myself to see what God is doing, and also be open to the shift, right? And, I know you talked about leaving your, getting laid off. It was a prayer board you did.
There was. I did a prayer board 2 weeks before my mom passed.
Right.
So this was a month before I got let go. And the prayer board,
right,
he pulled it out.
I had to pull it out to remind her.
Had to remind me a couple days after getting let go. And I'm home bad. Oh my life. What am I going to do? We're going to be on the streets. No, we're not. Stop it, Sheila. I'm so overdramatic sometimes. He's like, I just want to remind you of this prayer board. It was so funny because he sent me the picture. There was not one thing about that company I worked for on there. There was not one thing about dentistry on there, which was like, That's all I've ever done, that in ministry. And so it's just like, what is this? And so he said to me, and I was like, chuckle, okay, God, I see what you're doing. You're doing a new thing.
Yeah. But this podcast or bringing back the old podcast, but this is certainly a very new thing, was on that board.
It was.
And also serving other people was on that board.
I didn't know how I would do that because mom, wife, work full time.
When.
I serve in our local church. It was just like, when am I going to do that? But I was on there. I was like, I got a plan. Yeah. Just trust me.
So, all this to say, like, God, if you're in a wilderness season, like, do not get discouraged. Find your people, find, obviously your spouse. If you don't have a spouse, find your community. And lean in to what God is doing, right? And look for evidence of fruit, right? Look outside of yourself, even when it's hard, it doesn't make sense, of where you can serve, and think about how you're showing up and walk it out with God. God is with you. I know one thing we've had to shift the paradigm, perhaps more for you than for me, was about around this, is God punishing us. And I know I've been hard on myself.
But that was my upbringing.
Yeah, right.
The upbringing I experienced was God was a punishing God, not a loving God. And so that was my first. And I had to unlearn that because that was unhealthy.
Yeah. I mean, so, Moses and the Israelites leaving Egypt, right, got to the wilderness and, didn't have the choice meat, didn't have food, didn't have a lot of things. And it almost might have felt like punishment. But God was trying to do something in his people.
It definitely doesn't feel like punishment.
It doesn't now.
It feels like a gift. It does. I'll be really honest, because this is who we are, and we're going to be really honest. I was struggling with mental health myself towards the end. I didn't talk about it with many people, but I had suicidal thoughts. I was so miserable, but I had carried so much weight that I just thought I had no other choice. And I see me getting let go is God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. I wasn't going to leave this great income and great environment and job like on my resume, but inside it was killing me slowly. And I knew that God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to leave. So he was like, I love you too much to let you stay there.
How did that shift your perspective on how God sees you and your worth and your value? I know you talked about, you saw yourself through the lens of productivity. Mm-hmm. We'll talk more about that.
Whew, that's a heavy one, because that's something I'm still working on. So progress, not perfection. I have always seen my worth through the lens of what I produce. It's just the environment, home I grew up in. You were always pushed. I worked since I was 13 years old. So that's just what formed me and who I was. And I found my value in that. And when that was taken away, it was really challenging for me. But I believe that God needed to reveal that to me. And I needed to overcome that. I also needed to realize that I wasn't the provider.
Right.
And for most of our marriage, I would be like, I'm the solid provider and I'm the one that gives us insurance or whatever, I would say that. And I totally regret that now. And I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like you weren't pulling your part, because you were, but I should have never acted that way. But I felt like I had to do it. Right. God wasn't any part of that. That was me and what I had to do, what I was going to do. Yeah. And I feel like when it got taken away, I was like, okay, God, what are we doing?
Right.
What are we doing now? Because I'm out of options.
Well, I think that's what happened.
And I'm out of options, like internally.
Right.
I don't have it in me anymore to do this in my own strength. Yeah. And
I think that's revelation. I think they even get in this very moment. It's like we were both doing things. I was doing my business in my own strength. I had never really submitted it to our marriage and really shared it completely and transparently on a consistent basis with you. And you had been doing what you'd always done. And we both came into our marriages with our own career and our own vision, our own trajectories, and never really put that on the altar and truly bought that together. And we paid a price for it, but we also, the price we paid, though, has been a sacrifice that's allowed God to take that away and give us something new. And here we are with what
so
is new.
Better.
It's something so much better. And something that, to be honest, like we're so excited that we're going to be able to, we've already been doing this, be able to bless other newlywed, soon to be married couples, where we're coming up on 10 years of marriage. And we have so much to share that we've been through, and we're just blessed to be able to share it. We're not going to say we have all the answers, but we know a man who does in Jesus. And so
we want to give you hope that we can survive this and not kill each other and first.
Right.
Because there's a lot. Just hold on. Buckle up, Betty, because we've about to get crazy up in here.
I mean, we have some guests coming. We have definitely some topics we want to get into that are real. And we hope that you'll stick with us and grow with us. If you like what you're hearing here, if you think this is a place for you, please subscribe. Wherever you get your podcast, wherever you get your YouTube, share this. Follow us at My Progress Coach on social media. Check out myprogresscoach.com and check out what we're doing there. Learn a little bit more about us. And we're just grateful. Like you said, if you are feeling so inclined, hit the Cash App, hit the PayPal, hit the Venmo, wherever we got down there in that description. We really, blesses us, allows us to put this out and share this with the world. So we really are grateful for what we're doing. So we always want to end, like I said, we're going to be starting in with Bible, but we also want to end with encouragement. We want you to be encouraged. So how you want to start?
Why don't you hit the Bible?
Okay.
Hit the Bible first.
Hit the Bible first.
Hit the Bible first.
Hit the Bible. Hit the Bible.
Hit the Bible.
Read this one off my phone.
Go ahead.
2 Corinthians 4:16-18. Therefore, do not lose heart, family. Be encouraged. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. And that's how we got out the wilderness in 2023 and this year, day by day. Back to verse 17. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Your wilderness season, family, is temporary. Focus your eyes, as hard as it can be, as painful as it may be in the moment, focus your eyes on what is eternal. And I promise you'll see better days.
Yes. And I just want to encourage you that if you're in a wilderness season, do not isolate. Don't do life alone. Find a good community, a faith community, friends, someone that can help encourage you. Isolation is probably the worst thing that you could do. Try to see it through a spiritual lens and not a victim lens. I myself have struggled with that in the past, of seeing things through a victim lens. Woe is me. Why is this happening to me? I just want to encourage you. Don't see it through that lens. It's not productive. See it as, what is God doing? What's on the other side of this? As someone who's been through it, I can tell you there's a lot of beauty on the other side. And last thing is to embrace that God is doing a new thing. Isaiah 43:19, I believe. God is doing a new thing. Can't you see it? And that's what God was doing. Couldn't see it right away, but it didn't take me too long. I saw it. So thank you so much for joining us today. And as we always end with,
we couldn't
love you
if
we didn't love you.
Until next time, family, we love you.
Bye, guys. We love you.
Tell me what you're waiting for. The best is all for you. I gotta pray some more since I come home to you. I had to line it up, and they say we shouldn't shine it up, but that's just how his timing was. And look at what we do. They cannot tell me nothing, baby. The way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come to where you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you whenever. I keep my eyes on you forever. Man, we got the kind.